Hey guys, I am back with another video, and in this video I am going to talk about how to implement database backup and restore functionality in .NET MAUI apps. Whether it is mobile application or desktop application, it is going to be applied for both. Okay, and this backup and restore, this is very crucial, very important part of any application, and if it is an offline application then we could say it is must. The backup and restore functionality is must for any offline application. Okay, so when we ship our application, most of the application needs some database, and when we talk about database has some schema, that means tables, indexes, all those things. Then we ship some initial seeding data. Okay, so for those purpose, what we can do, either we can have some code first migration kind of thing. We might use directly SQLite, LightDB, or maybe we can use Entity Framework Core, EF Core with .NET MAUI apps. So for EF Core, we have code first migrations. But when we are working with SQLite database without Entity Framework or any LightDB, then also we can have our seeding data, all our database schema, all these classes, all these we can have in our code. And when our app first launches, first initializes, then we actually create the database, add the tables, and then insert the seeding data. Now what if we don't want to use this code, or maybe our database is huge, we don't want to have everything code written, the seed data and all that. So in that case, what we can do, we can ship our database with the application. Okay, so with .NET MAUI application, we can ship our database, which will have all the table indexes, all those things with some initial data as well. When we will first launch our application, at that time we will use the database to restore the database which we ship as a part of application. We'll simply restore it at some place from where we can access it inside our application. So this is for restore. Now we can have some backup functionality, mostly for offline apps. Why I said this? So I recently worked on this desktop app for restaurant POS application. So the videos are already on my channel, so I would recommend you guys to check that out. So I'll quickly show you part of that. So this was the application. We shipped this application with some initial menu items, initial categories. Now what if I added so this app is completely offline. I have added couple of items to the cart, and I'll make this. So now we have these two orders, and we have order functionality. We might modify some of the item. Let's say this beer, I modified the price to 4.5, save it. So now I have changed these things. These are different from the initial database. Now because this is an offline application, if I somehow accidentally uninstalled this app, something happened with my system, in that case I don't have any backup of this data, and if I reinstall the app, it will going to clean this data, because it will be clean installation, so clean database which we got when we first installed the app. So that should not happen. For this, what we can do, we can maybe provide some backup functionality somewhere in the app. So whenever, let's say, we want to change our system, we want to uh, for any purpose, we want to uninstall this app and install it again, we want to switch to some other system, or for any reason, if we want to reinstall this application, and if we want to have our data back, we can have backup functionality. We will simply back up the database, and after that, when we'll install the app and when we first launch the app, at that time we can ask the user if the user has some backup already. So if user has some backup already, then what we can do, we can simply ask them for the backup file, and from there user can select the backup file, and user can restore the database. Now he will have all the data, all orders, modified menu items, categories, all that data. So now the application would be same with the existing data. So that is the main reason we should have backup and restore in our .NET MAUI app. So let's dive into the code. So I am in here in Visual Studio 2022. I'm going to create a .NET MAUI app. Next, let's name it MAUI DB Backup Restore. Let's name it this. Next, and .NET 8. I'm going to create this project. Now project is created. So what I have done, I have simply created a database which has one table named this user, which has one entry, one row with ID and name, ID1, name Abhay, my name. Okay, so I have the sample database. I am going to copy this database in my application. I'm going to ship our application with this database. Okay, so I'm not going to use code first migration, and I'm not going to create the database from our application, and I'm not going to insert the initial seed data into the database from code. Okay, so when we want to ship database with our application .NET MAUI application, so the place where we should have that file, the database file, that is inside a resources folder, we have raw folder. Inside this raw folder we will add our database file. So I'm having this mauidb.db3. This is the file, and then we can access this file in our code. All right, now what we'll do, save everything. Now because we are going to work with SQLite, so let me install the SQLite NuGet packages. So for SQLite integration in .NET MAUI app, I already have videos on my channel, so I'm going to drop the links of those videos in the description box, so you can check those videos out. For this we need two SQLite packages. First is SQLite Net PCL. Let's install it. And the next one is going to be SQLite PCL raw.bundle underscore green. Install it. Apply. And now we are good. We have installed SQLite related packages. Now what I'll do, we have our database, but in order to access the database, we will get some data, update some data, insert some data, delete some data. So for all that thing, we need to have the classes, models in our application. So for that, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to name it data. Inside this, I'm going to create one entity class, user, because that is what we have in our database. So user, and we know, we just saw that this user has two fields, ID and name. ID is integer, name is text. So let me zoom it. Here I'll say public class user, and we will be having public int ID and public string name. And this ID, this is going to be primary key, which will come from SQLite and auto increment as well. Save. So our file is ready, our entity is ready. Now what we'll do, we'll simply create a database context file in this folder. Class, I'll call it data context. It's up to you how you name it. You can name it whatever you want. Okay, inside this, what I'll do, public class data context. Here first we'll say private const string database name. Okay, mauidb.db3. This name is up to you. Now you just need to make sure that this name should be same when you are accessing it, when you are restoring it, at these two places at least. For backing up, you can name whatever you want, but when you will restore the database, at that time you should use this name only, because this is the name we are going to use in our data context file, from where we will actually access the data. Okay, now in here I'm going to have constructor. Inside the constructor, I'm going to generate a DB path where a DB should live. So it would be path.combine, and we will have file system dot app data directory. Here should be our file database file, and this is the database name. So now DB path is complete database path. Okay. Now after this, we are going to have a SQLite async connection. So connection equals new SQLite async connection, which will come from using SQLite only. Okay. Inside, the first thing is we need SQLite connection string, which is going to be this DB path. And then we can have some SQLite open flags as well. Okay. So we are going to use SQLite open flags dot read write. Okay. And let's use SQLite open flags dot shared cache as well. So now our connection is ready. Now in order to use this connection, let's create a private read-only field outside of this. Private read-only SQLite async connection underscore connection, and we'll provide body for this, value for this inside constructor only. So all these things which I'm doing, these are part of how to implement or integrate SQLite database in our .NET MAUI app. So you can check this in detail in some other videos, in my other videos. Okay. Now, in order to access the users, right now we have only one user, but let's create a method to access user. So we'll say public async task user array. And from here, we'll say await underscore connection. What happened? Public async task. Oh, name. Get users async. We'll say connection dot table. Type of the table is user. So this is the schema of the table. Dot to array async. Now using this, we are returning the users list. Now if you check with SQLite connection, we provided DB path. We are not creating the database. Okay, we are directly accessing it from this location. But at this location, this database does not exist because we did not create it. So we need to create this database. But how can we create it? We already have this database as a part of this raw folder, mauidb.db3. So what we should do, we should actually restore this database when we are first launching our application. At that time, we should get this database out of this raw folder and restore this database at this location. Okay. So that thing we are going to do next. So first thing we need to do, let's go to the entry point of our application. That is this app.xaml.cs. So here, this is the entry point. Now, when we are here, what we should do, inside this constructor only, we can check if this is the first run or not. Okay, or we could say if database is restored or not. So for this, what we can do here, we can simply have a statement if condition, and if this is first launch or not. So .NET MAUI does not give us any flag or anything related to this, that the way we can check if this is the first run or not. But what we can do, we can simply use preferences to check if this is the first run after installation or not. So we'll say preferences dot default dot, here we could simply check for contains key. If this contains some key, and that key is going to, let's say, db restored. If this key exists, that means database is restored already, and we could say this is not first run. So we can simply skip. And here, if it comes to else case, then we'll say this is the first run. We need to restore the database. But in this case, when we want to restore the database, how would we know that this is the actually the first run? This is the first time user is installing this app, or maybe this is the application where user already used it, user already had some backup, and then user is reinstalling the application, right? Before that, we don't have any way by which we can check. But instead, what we can do, we can maybe display a confirmation box to user to ask if they have some backup file to restore. If they have it, we will simply show an option to them so that they can simply choose the backup file. If they don't have backup file, then we'll simply restore with our default database, that is inside this resources raw folder where we copied. Okay, now we need to restore the database. So here we'll say uh, ask user if he had some database backup. Now if yes, then show an option to choose the backup file to restore. Else restore our initial database from our resources slash raw folder. So this is the main skeleton we are going to use. Okay, now let's do this. Let's not have this thing here like this. So there is no point of having this if condition, sorry, not this if case. We can negate it. So not contains key. So this case belongs to this if case, and this else case belongs here. So what I'll do, I'll simply leave it here. This is not first run, database is restored already, so no need to do anything. Let the app continue. Like this. Okay, so now for this all this case, let's create a method here. Okay, we are going to do a lot of things, so better to have a method. So here we'll say private async task, and here we'll say restore database async, or maybe we could say handle first run async, something like this. Okay, so we'll cut this thing, paste inside this method, and we'll call this method. So handle first run async. Now because this is a constructor, so in C# async constructor is not yet supported, so we can't have a wait here. And if we do this like this, we can't have this. We can have it technically, it will not go through any error, but this is not a correct way to do it. One thing is we can maybe use it as an event, so we can have void here, then it will not give us warning, but this is not the correct way for this particular case, because now it will simply trigger this and it will continue execution, it will go to the next place, but that is not what we want. Now so let it be task only, save it. Now let's do all these things one by one. So ask user if he has some database backup. So what we'll do, how can we ask user? So we can simply display a confirmation box. But for that, we have main page here. So on main page, we have display alert method. The same way we have shell.current.display alert. It exists on this main page as well. So main page, the title, we could say this is first launch. Message, here we will ask, do you have a database backup file to restore? We are asking a question. Okay, then yes and no. So yes and no. Now this method is going to give us task of bool Let's store the result of this. So we'll say var result equals await and this message. Now we will check if result, that means user selected yes. User selected yes. User has a DB backup file. Here we'll say show user an option to choose the backup file. Okay. And if user cancelled or pressed no, in that case user selected no. That means user does not have backup file. In this case, what we'll do? Restore the initial database. Restore our initial DB from this location. So this is what we are going to do here. Okay. Now, show user an option. This is fine. How can we show an option to select a file from file system? Okay. So for that, what we have file picker API. File picker dot default dot we can use pick async method. This takes pick options. So here we could say new pick options, and then this pick options, it has two properties, file types and picker title. Picker title, let's say database file to restore. Select database file to restore. This is the picker title. And then we have file types. What file types it should display when we are trying to restore it. So here, if we check the type of this file types, if we go to this file picker file type, this is the type. It had some predefined static read-only fields, images, PNG, JPG, videos, but PDF. In our case, these are not images, not PNG, JPG, videos, PDF. The file we are trying to load in our app, that is a database file. It could be any database file, but in our case, I'm using SQLite database. So it could be .db, .SQLite, .db3, .SQLite3, all these SQLite file extensions. There is no option to directly show the custom extension. But if we go further, we can see there is a constructor of this file picker file type which takes a dictionary of device platform and IEnumerable string. So we can provide platform specific extensions in here. So let's use this one. So here what we'll do, we'll say var SQLite DB extensions. Okay, and I'm going to use it as an IEnumerable of string. And inside this we can provide available file types. So we could use .db. So these are the SQLite extensions. So db, db2, db3, then .SQLite, .SQLite2 and .SQLite3. So all these extensions are up to you or how you are doing this, but these are the most commonly used SQLite extensions. You can modify this as per your requirement. Okay, now we'll have var file types equals new file picker file type, and inside this constructor we can provide one dictionary. Let's use this var we'll say platform file types. This is dictionary, so new dictionary of type device platform. So key is device platform, and the value is enumerable of string. Okay, now let's provide value. So we'll use device platform dot to Windows. So WinUI, this is the key, and the extensions are these SQLite DB extension. So we are good. Our dictionary is ready. We can provide this inside this file picker file types, and now we are good. Now we can use these file types here. Now it is ready. Pick async returns task of file result, nullable file result. So here we can store it in a file result with a wait. Now on this file result, we can check. Here we'll say if file result is not equals null. Now we have file. User has selected the database file. Now we have the database file. Now what we can do, we can simply say using var db file stream equals. We can get the stream from this file result. File result dot open read async. It gives us a task of stream. We can simply await it here. Now our db file stream is ready. Now we can use this file stream to save it at the place where we want to have our database. Now where we want to have our database, that is in our data context. So this db path, this is the place where we want to have our database. Now we need to access this thing there as well. Instead of having it inside this constructor as a field, what we can do, we can maybe have it directly inside this this data context. So we'll say public static read only db path. Then we can use this thing here, public static read only string. Okay, and then let's use the db path. Now we are good. Okay, I didn't make it const because we want to have this path dot combine, and we want to combine these two things. That's why I didn't have that it as const, and I'm having it static read only field. All right, now we can use this. So here we'll say var path to restore db. This we know this is from data context from our data folder dot db path. This is where we want to store our database. Now what we'll do, we'll create an empty database file. We'll say file dot create, and we can provide this path. So path to restore db. Now what this gives us, if we check, create gives us file stream. So we can store this in a file stream. So we'll say var fs file stream, and we can have using here as well. So using var fs equals file dot create. Now we have file stream. Now what we need to do, we need to copy this db file stream to this file. Okay, here we'll say await db file stream dot copy to async fs. So just copy this file which user selected to this location where we have created an empty database. Just copy this. Now we are good. Our database is restored now. All right. Now when our database is restored, for the second use, we can set this key. So we are going to use it one more time. So let's have this key in a const here. I'll say private const string db restored key equals this, and let's use this db restore key here. And after restoring the database, we'll say preferences dot default dot set db restore key, and the value, we are not concerned about value. We are not going to use value because the check we are having, we are just checking if this key exists in preferences. So we are okay with having it as boolean. Now a lot of talking for this This case, when we are asking user to provide backup file. Now what if user selected no, user does not have any backup file, we want to store it from our resources folder. Whatever we have in raw folder, the way it works, if we check this about assets.file, so all these files, whatever we have in raw folder, all these are considered as MAUI asset, and this is handled by the default configuration. If we go to CS pros file, here uh, raw assets, so these MAUI assets, whatever we have in raw folder, all these are going to be considered as raw, and these are kind of embedded in application. And the way we can access this, that is file system.open app package file async, and we can provide the name of the file. This is how we can access it. Okay, let's use this. So we'll go to our app.xaml.cs here. Here we'll say var db file stream, or let's say existing, or let's say db file stream only. Let's do this only. db file stream equals, here we'll say await file system dot open app package async, and here we need to provide our file name. So this file name. Now because we are using same name in here and in our data context here, the database name, we can maybe make it public, and here we can use this database context. What was the data context? Not database context. Data context dot db name, database name. Now we have this file stream, which is a stream from this. Now after this, we need to repeat these things. Okay, path to restore the database, creating the new file at this place, then copying this db file stream, and then setting the preference. So these things are repeating. So what we can do, we can maybe create a helper method inside this only if we want to. Inside this method, internal function we'll create. So here we'll say static async task and restore db file async, and we can simply provide stream to them. We'll say stream db file stream. Okay, and inside this we will have this logic, path to restore with this set. So we'll copy this. Now we can simply remove this thing from here, and we can just have one line which will say await restore db file async, and we'll provide this db file stream as a parameter. Same thing we'll copy and we'll do in this else case. And now we are good. Our restore logic is done. Now we are going to have one problem here. Okay, now what problem? I can show you. It should show this display alert, but it is not going to show us this display alert. The reason is we are asking this to call this method, which is this method. So here we are saying the display an alert. But what happens when we are inside this apps constructor? The app is not fully initialized, and when app is not initialized, it does not know all the required information related to the app, the platform, the device, the size, dimensions, all those things. So it is not able to correctly figure out where to display, how to display an alert. Okay, so it is not able to figure out. Now the way we can do this, so for this to run, to display alert prompt and all these things, it needs to know the complete dimensions, measurements, and all information related to the platform it is going to run. So for that, it needs to at least come to a place where the first page can render. So right before rendering the first page, when it is loaded the application, then we should call this. Now how would we know that app is loaded? Now we can call this. For this, what .NET MAUI gives us on our main page, it gives us one event, that is this loaded event. So occurs when an element has been constructed and added to the object tree. So added to the object tree, this is the key here. So here we are saying that main page has loaded. Then we can call something. We can hook our method here. So we'll simply call this main page loaded. This, and from here we can call this handle first render async. And now because this is actually an event, we can have a wait keyword here. So we can use this. Now we are good. You can copy this all this thing inside this method directly in this main page underscore loaded, but because I have implemented this before, that's why I'm having it like this. Now we are good. Now we don't need to call this handle first run async. We can remove this thing. Now we are good. Okay, so save everything. Let's try to run it. Would it ask us for this first launch or no? And would we be able to get the data? First, let's see if it is asking us that alert. I'm running it. This is on Windows only. Alright, so it is asking us, do you have a backup file to restore? Yes or no? Let's go into the code and let's put breakpoint. Right now we are here. Let's put a breakpoint here. So we'll say, okay, let's try yes. If we say yes, it came here. Result is true in this case. It's showing us this thing, file types, all these things. Now it shows us this this UI to choose a file, some database file. So we can select the database file. Let me select any file. Maybe this is invalid file. We need to have the check as well, but at least it is asking. I cancelled. It came here. In this case, it did not go here. It did not do anything. It will ask us again when we'll relaunch the application. But right now, if we do this, it is not going to show any informative UI or any alert or warning message. Ideally, it should either show some message, or in this case, it's up to you. Do you want to display this alert again, or you want to show this speaker again, or in this case you just want to restore the database which you have in your app. So the use case, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Okay, in this case I'm not going to do anything. Let me stop it and let me run this again. This time what I'll do, I'll say no. It came here, result is false this time. So it came to this thing. Now here db file stream, it is able to get this database file. Then in this method, this saying path to restore db. This is the complete path where it is going to restore. Let's copy this path and let's check what we have at this path. So right now this is empty. We don't have anything here. Now let's continue from here. Copy to async. Then it is setting the preferences. Continue. We have our app running. And now we'll see if we have that database file here. This is the file system. If I refresh it, I can see this file here. So this simply copied that file to this location. Stop it. And now we are good. Now if I, and after that it set this preferences. Now if I run the application again, this time it is not going to ask us to restore the database, because now it has this preferences set. That means it has this thing set. Okay. Now how can we know that the database restore? We can see the file, but is it in workable condition? Is it the correct database? Can we access something from that? For that we have this data context where we have this get users async method, right? So let's try to get the first user from here and let's try to display the username. on main page. Now I'm going to show you some error and how to tackle that, but right now let's do this. We have this main page. You can try this with mvvm, but I'm not going to use mvvm in this. I'll directly use this code behind. So here what I'll do, I'll simply inject the data context class here. So data context. Now because I'm injecting this class, I need to add it in a dependency container. So here we'll say builder.services.add singleton data context. Use the using, and because we are injecting it in main page, so main page should also get registered in di container. So here after this add singleton, we can add this also as singleton. So main page, save it, and now we are good. Now we can access the data content. Now what we will do in this main page.xml, let's do this. Image is fine. We have this first label, hello world. Then we have this second label. So for the second label, let's do this. Let's change the text, or maybe let's add name. We'll say name lbl, which is for name label. Save it. Go back in this code. What we can do, we have this data context. So here what we can do, we can say name lbl dot text equals, we need to get the value from this data context. So here we are going to use that approach, that loading approach. So here I'll say private async void, let's say load data async, something like this. And for this, let's have this data context as a private read-only field. Here we'll say var users equals underscore data context dot get users async. We'll await it. Now it is going to be nullable users array, which is going to be nullable. So here we can say if users is not equals null, in that case what we'll do, we'll say name lbl dot text equals users dot first, or maybe first dot default, question mark dot name, and if this is null, we'll say some unknown user. Save it, and let's call this load data async from our constructor. Okay, so I'm saving it, and right now I have already restored the database. So I'll show you that this should work. It should display my name. And we can see this Abhay. Now what if I uninstall this app to show you the initial case again? Let me uninstall the app. I have uninstalled the app. Let me run it. This time let's see what happens. We have some error. It is saying could not open database file, this file, which is the correct database file. It could not open this. Why? It is trying to access this thing. It is trying to call this method. It is trying to get this database before our app.xml.cs this code could run, where we will copy the database. Now we have a situation. Why it is happening? Because this app, this main page loaded, this is the place where our main page has loaded. When we say main page has loaded, that means this constructor gets called. After that, now when constructor is getting called, we are triggering this, and here we are trying to access this. Or we could say when we install when we instantiate this main page, it try to inject this database context, and when it is trying to do this in data context constructor, we are creating this connection. We are directly trying to get this database which does not exist yet. So we need to find a way by which we can have some workaround for this. So whenever let's say before accessing before restoring the database, it should not ask anything. Now, there is no direct way to do this. Maybe there is. If you guys know about something related to this, do let me know in the comments. But for me, there is no direct way. But what we can do for this particular case, we can have a temporary page in our application. What I mean is, inside this, I'm going to create a new page. So new item, .NET MAUI content page. The name is up to you. Maybe init page or temp page. You could name it whatever you want. Just let's say init page. Here, we are not going to have anything. We are not going to have any logic. What we can do, let's remove this title. We are not going to have this title. And what we will do, we will simply have some background color. Let's say black. Inside that, we are going to have this vertical stack layout. We'll say horizontal options as center, vertical options as end. So at the end, inside this, we'll have a margin of, let's say, 50. And then for this label, we can have some default text. We'll say uh, getting app ready to use, something like this, some generic message. For vertical option center, horizontal option center, this is fine. On this, we can say font attributes bold, and font size, we'll make some bigger size, let's say 30. And we'll have text color white because the background is black. So we have our init page, and in this init page, we are not injecting anything. Now what we'll do, we'll go to our app.xaml.cs here. Here, if you see, we have main page equals app shell, which is going to instantiate our shell. And if you go to app shell, inside this, we are actually having the first shell content as main page. It instantiates this main page. And in the main page constructor, we have data context. So all these things are connected. Ultimately, it is going to try to create instance of data context. And it is going to try to call this method. We need to just skip it. What we'll do, in app.xaml.cs, instead of directly setting main page to new app shell, what we'll do, we'll say main page equals init page. Now it is not app shell. This is init page, new init page. Now after doing this, so this should come only when we are trying to restore our database. So we are first launching our application. That means this should not be here. This should be inside this if condition. Okay. And then this main page app shell, this should be in this else condition. Now we can simply remove this thing from here. Now we are good. If we are first launching, it will come here. If we are launching, and this is any subsequent launch, it will come here. It will have the app shell and it will behave same as it was behaving earlier. But now when we have this main page init page, now what we need to do after finishing this, so main page dot loaded, this time it will call when init page has initialized, added to the object tree. Then it will call this, so it will call all these things. Now what we should do after doing this main page loaded logic, all this thing, when we are restoring is complete. After this thing, we should set main page back to app shell, because now the purpose of this init page is finished, is completed. Now there is no point of having it. We'll simply say main page dot app shell, main page equals new app shell, and in this handle first run async, or maybe after this handle first run async, we'll do this main page equals new app shell. Now we are done with the restore process. Now you can actually instantiate the actual app. That is what we are saying here. Save everything. We try to uninstall the app again. Uninstall. Okay. Now let's try to run it again. Now it should show this init page with that. So empty black screen with that label and alert, display alert. You see, getting app ready to use, and we have this thing, there is no error. Do you have a database backup file to restore? Yes or no? If we say no, it will come here, it will continue everything, and then it is going to show us the main home page. Init page is finished now. There is no init page, and we can see the name. That means this thing is working. Next thing, now let's try to run it. This is the subsequent use run. So the second time, this time it should directly come to this place. Now we are good. All right. That means our functionality is working as we are expecting it to work. Right. So restore is done. Now we will work on backup functionality. So this restore, this is kind of automatic process when we are first launching our app, but backup would be a manual process. When we say manual, that means the trigger of backup operation would be manual. So we will have some operation somewhere in our app. From there, user can trigger the backup functionality, and after that, we'll ask user to save that backup file somewhere. Because if we save it at some random place or at our place, then user, how would user know that where is our file, where is the file which user took backup of, right? So we need to show some option to user to save that backup file somewhere. All right, now what we'll do, we need to have backup functionality. Let's do this. Let's create a service class inside, maybe data only. So here we'll say class, and we'll call it backup service. Backup service. Add public class backup service. Here we can say public async task backup async. Okay, save it. Now we can try backup functionality. So for backup, what we will do, we will get our database from this path, and we will ask user to save this file somewhere. Kind of this thing we are going to do. So let's try to do this. In this, first we'll get our db file path, which we already have, right? So we'll use a db file stream. We'll get this. Okay. So for this, what we can do, we can say file dot open read. We need to provide path, and the path is going to be data context dot db path. So using this open read returns file stream. So now we have this file stream. Let's use using. We have this file stream now. Here we'll say ask user, or maybe show user an option to choose the location to save the database backup. Okay, we want the user to select the location. For that, we are going to use a file saver API. Now the file saver does not directly exist. So for this, what we'll do, we'll use community toolkit.maui package. So from there, we can use this file saver API. So we'll simply go and try to install a package, browse, and here we'll say community toolkit.maui, community toolkit.maui maui. So install it. Install. Why is it taking this much time? Apply, accept. Error 8071 to 8021. Okay, so maybe there is some mismatch happening. Let's go to this CS Pros. Let's see. Did we install it? No, we didn't, right? Okay, it is using this MAUI version. So we can set this MAUI version. What was the error again? It was the error community toolkit.maui 903. So maybe we should not use this latest version. Let's go to the previous version 9.0.2. What was it using? It was using 8021. It's also not the same. 801. Let's try to install 801, which is using 8014. Maybe this is the one. Install. Apply. I accept. And we are good. Okay. Now, when we install this community toolkit.maui, it asks us to add this use Maui community toolkit in our Maui program. We are going to add this Maui program. We can see this error. It is saying .use Maui community toolkit must be chained on use Maui app. So let's add this .use Maui community toolkit, and it should come from using community toolkit.maui. Now we are good. Now we can access things from this Maui community toolkit. So in our backup service here, now we can use file saver, which will come from community toolkit.maui.storage. File saver default we have this save async method. Inside this, if we check, there are a lot of overloaded versions of this, but the first one is file name, stream and cancellation token. The second one is file name, stream and iProgress. So you can use this progress if we have a big file to backup. If we have a lot of data, it is going to take some time. Then we can use this iProgress interface to show some progress or loading indicator or something like that, or maybe the progress only, that now it is 10% backup is complete, 20, 30, 40, 50, kind of this. I'm not going to use this inside this. Maybe if you want me to maybe show how this iProgress works, do let me in the comment. I can plan a dedicated video for this iProgress interface. But in this case, in this application right now, we are going to use the first, where we have file name, stream and cancellation token, which is default. We are not using cancellation token, so we are good. Now file name. What is the file name? So this is the file name we are going to save this current backup file as. For this, we'll use data context dot database name. This is the file name we wanted to save. The stream is this db file stream, this thing. All right. Now let's see what it returns. It gives us task of file saver result. This is not nullable. This is the direct result. Here we'll say var file saver result equals this, and we'll await it. Now on this file saver result, we can check if this operation was successful. If it was not, then we can display some alert. So app.current.mainpage.display alert. Here we could say backup error, something like this. And the message, we could say error in backup. And then we can maybe display the error message. What was the error? So here we can access file saver result dot exception dot message, and then OK button. We are good. We are just displaying an error message here. If this was not the case, then we can simply show alert message for this successful operation. So here we'll say backup success, and then we can say backup successfully saved to, we can display the backup location, so that we can get from this file saver result dot full path or file path. We can access this. So backup successfully saved to this path. Now we are good. So our backup logic is ready. Now we can use this backup service somewhere, wherever we need it. We can use this. Now let's do this. We have restore as well, right? So for restore also, let's create a new class in here in database data folder only. You can create it anywhere. So I'm going to create a class. I'll say restore service. I'm going to create a method here, public async task restore async, and we can simply copy that logic from app.xaml.cs to this, which was this handle first run async. Solve this logic. We can actually move this to the that restore method. Now here, first thing, we don't have this db restored key. Technically, we can have it here, but we will not have it here. Instead, what we'll do, we'll return status from here. So this should return task of bool. If the operation was successful, it will return true. If it was not, then it will return false. So here we could say return false. And from this restore db file async, we'll return bool. I'm not having try catch, but you can have try catch here. And then you can return false if the operation was not successful. We'll remove this thing and we'll say return true from here. And from here, restore db file async will return this response of this here and from here. Now we are good. Our this is ready. Now main page to display alert. Main page, we can't directly access this main page because on app it was a property on this base application. But in this case, this is a direct service. It does not have this main page. So here we'll say app.current.main page. Now this is same. Now there is one case. Should we handle this case, or I guess we are okay, right? We are okay. So restore async. We'll come here. Now we can add this restore service to our dependency container. Now we should not add it as singleton because this class is going to be used only once. That too when this is the first run, first launch. Then so there is no point of having it instantiate or adding to the dependency container as singleton because we are not going to use it as singleton. First thing. Second thing is, if we inject it, maybe we register it as transient and we inject it in our app.xaml.cs, but in this case it will be instantiated always. Whenever we launch our app, then it is going to be instantiated. But this is not the case. There is no point of instantiating this restore service always because we are going to use it only in this case. That means only when the user is launching this app for the first time. So for this, I'm not going to register this inside dependency container. I'm not going to use di for this restore service. That's what I'm saying. Instead, I will directly create instance of this. Now here, what we can do, we can maybe move this, or maybe let's remove this complete logic. We'll just have this line and then we'll remove this complete logic from this thing. And here we'll say var restore service equals new restore service. Then we could say restore service dot restore async. This is an async method, so we'll await it. Now if this operation was successful, so we can check. You can say var it's successful. Then we'll check if this operation was successful. Then we'll simply set the where is that? I missed that. Okay. Here we'll say preferences dot default dot set db restored key true. So we can do this. If this operation was successful, we can do this, or maybe we can directly add this inside this if. But using this, it is showing the intent and we know what this returns. So this approach is good. And now we are good. We have moved this restore to somewhere. Now restore is fine for backup. Now this backup, we can do the same thing for backup as well. We can register it as singleton, but there is no point of registering it as singleton or as transient. If we are using it on some specific page, then we can register it as transient and we can inject it. But in our case, in this particular case, I'm not going to use it as this way. So for this also, we'll directly create instance of this. Now, it is not going to work, but I'll show you first error, then we'll try to fix that thing. So on main page only, what I'll do, I'm going to create a button. We have this counter button. Let's change this counter button. So let's say backup btn, remove this clicked event, change this text to backup. Okay. Let's say horizontal options fill, we'll say horizontal options center so that it correctly shows this. Save it. And then for this clicked, let's add a new click handler. So we'll come here. Now we can remove this on counter click because we are not using this, and we can remove this counter as well. All right. Now we have this backup button clicked method. Here what we'll do, we'll create an instance of our backup service equals new backup service. Let me add a comment here because this is going to be used on demand only. There is no point of adding this backup service to DI using this. All right, so we are good. Backup service. After this, we can say await backup service dot backup async. Now we are good. If I run it, I'm going to have an error that we'll see and we'll try to fix it. We have this thing, we have backup button. If I click on this backup, we have this error. It is saying the process cannot access the file, this database file, because it is being used by some another process. And that is true because our backup async, this method is trying to get access to this database file, which is in use by our data context class because we have this SQLite async connection. This connection is still using that file because we are creating that connection in this data context. That's why it is not able to get access to this file. Now, what we should do in this case, we should release this file when we are backing up. What we should do when we are backing up, we should close this connection. And once backup operation is complete, we should again open this connection. For this, what we can do, we can have an helper method here. So we'll say public async task, we'll say close connection async. Okay. And here we can say await underscore connection dot close async. Save it. Now it will close the connection. We'll come here. We'll stop this. So before doing this db file operation, we need to get access to that data context here. So we have two options. Either we can create class and we can have that, or maybe we can have that as a parameter to this method directly. So data context, data context. Here we can say data context dot close connection async. Okay. Now we are good. We can create this connection. Close this connection using this. Then we can copy this. And after doing all these operations, we should open that connection again. So the way we are closing the connection, the same way we can open the connection. So if we see this connection, this does not need async. So we can simply have it as public void. We could say open connection or setup connection. Just do this. Say setup connection. Setup connection. Now it should do this thing. So I'll cut it from here. I'll add it here. Save it. Now this underscore connection, this is read only. So now we can't have it as read only. So we'll remove this as read only. From constructor, we'll call it. This is for first time. If we never called setup connection or never called backup or close connection, then it should use this one, which is this setup connection. So we are good with this thing. Now when we are here, when we are trying to backup, so after doing everything, we can maybe try to have try catch finally here. Inside finally, we'll say data context dot setup connection, and in try we'll do all other things. Save it. Now we should be good. In catch, we can display error if we want to, and for me, I'm good with this. So now for backup async from our main page, we need to pass the data context, which we already have here. So underscore data context, save it. Now we should be good. Let's try it out. Windows machine, run it. We are here. We try backup. Place where we want to. Let's have it in documents. Save. Backup successfully saved to this location. It is showing us the location. See users Abhay OneDrive documents and this file name. We'll press OK, and now we are good. Backup again. It will do the same thing. Cancel this time. When I cancel, it is saying backup error. Error in backup, operation cancelled, or path doesn't exist. Okay, we are good. Close it. So we are good. Backup functionality is working. Now let's try to restore this backup file. Okay, which we just saved. So for this, again, I'm going to uninstall my file, my app, uninstall it, and then I'll run the first backup. I'll choose this file only. So Windows machine, let's run. This time I'll say yes, I have backup. Yes. Now I need to choose that. So I'll go to my documents, and here I have this MauiDB.db3 open. And now I can see this Abhay. That means this data is coming from database only. But how would we know that this got changed? Now let's make some change in this database. Then we'll try backup quickly. So what I'll do on this main page only, let's do this. Main page, we have this label where I'm showing my name. So instead of label, let's have entry. I'll say entry X name. Here I'll say name entry. Just this. Okay. Then inside this main page.xml.cs, I'm going to modify that name entry, or maybe I'm going to modify the user in the database. I'm going to change this. So in the data context, let's quickly create a method. Public async task update user async, and I'll provide the complete user object. Here I'll say await connection dot update async user. Save it. And now I should be good. Now let's use this. So in our main page, we are loading users. Let's do this. For the first or default user, let's create a private field here. Private nullable user underscore user. Now here I'll say underscore user. It should be underscore user equals users dot first dot default, and now I'm going to use this underscore users. This underscore user. Now when backing up this time, before doing this thing, I'll check if underscore user is not equals null. That means yes, we got this. Inside this, what I'll do, I'll say underscore user dot name equals, we have name entry. Name entry. So that name entry, right? Name entry dot text. I'm modifying user's name. Then I'll say await underscore data context dot update user async, and I'll provide this underscore user to this so that we can see if this update was happened, and then we'll take backup and then we'll use that to restore. Save everything, the initial value as well, let's use that. So the same thing we'll say in this load data async, we'll say name entry dot text equals name label dot text. Save it, run it. We already have used our database, we already restored, so this time it should directly open main page. And we have Abhay, and here also we have Abhay. Let's change this name. So Abhay Prince. Okay, now I'm going to backup. So what this backup do? First it will get this name, update the database, our local database, then it will take backup. So the database which we are shipping our app with, it has Abhay, and the latest database which has these changes, it is in our backup. I'll say backup. Yeah, this documents only. So save. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I want to replace this. Okay, now we are good. Now I'll close this. Let's quickly run it to see if this update happened. Abhay Prince, yes, this update happened in the local database. Now I'll uninstall this app and I'll try to restore our app with this new backup file. Let's run it. Backup file, yes, I have it. Let's choose the backup file. So open. This time you see we have Abhay Prince. That means this was the backup file. I can show you it again. So I'm again going to uninstall this. This time what I'll do, I'll not use my backup file. I'll simply use default, which should display Abhay only, not Prince, because this was the file which we have in resources, the initial. If I say no, we can see just Abhay. And with that backup file, we will see that. So that means with this setup, whatever we have done, backup and restore functionality is working. We are able to save the backup as the desired location. We are shipping our application with our database as a raw file. We are accessing it, we are restoring it, and if user already had some backup file, user can choose that file and restore it. Now one thing, I am directly using it, but what happens with the .db3, it could be any database file. So if we open it, it might be some other database file. You can see Abhay Prince, this thing is working. What you should do when you are restoring, after coming here where you have this db file stream, then you should verify if this is your file only. So I'll leave this thing to you. You can maybe check if this has your schema, your tables, or things like that. All right. So now this is fine on Windows. Let's quickly try it out on Android. Android emulator, and it is not showing emulators. Let me close the Visual Studio and open it again. I have closed the Visual Studio, open it again. Let's see if this time we can see Android emulator. Yes. Launch emulator. Let's run the app on this emulator. So first time it is going to take a lot of time. Alright, so this is on Android emulator, getting app ready to use, and we can see this first launch alert. Do you have a database backup file? Yes or no? I don't have it on my mobile, so I'll say no. And we can see this Abhay and Abhay. Now let's do this. Let's change the name and try to backup. Now you see error in backup, you need to declare using the permission android.permission write external storage in your Android manifest. The first thing is we need to have this permission setup for external storage. So we'll stop it. We will go to our platforms, Android, and Android manifest.xml file. Here we can go here, required permissions. Here we can search for storage, right? External. Let me search it. Right external storage. This, save it. And for these permissions, what you can do, let me show you. You can simply go to community toolkit .maui. So community toolkit maui .maui community toolkit, and here you can search for essentials and file saver. This is the one which we are using, and inside this, if you see, on Android we need to set these things. iOS, nothing is needed. Mac Catalyst, we need this setting. Windows, nothing is needed. That is why we didn't have to do anything for Windows. We just tested. For Android, we need to add these two permissions. So read external storage, write external storage. So read is already selected. For write, we just selected this. Save it and run it. Okay, now try backup. I'll modify it. Abhay Prince 1. Backup. It is asking allow. Now we can select some location. Okay. Let's say I want to go to downloads and maudb.db3. Let's save it. Backup saved to this location, storage, emulator, and this. So we are good. We have this thing. Backup is done. Now let's try to restore this. So for this, I need to uninstall this app. Let me uninstall this. I installed it. Let's try to run it this time, and we'll use this backup file to restore it. And we should see Abhay Prince 1. Let's see if it works or we have some error. I know we are going to face an error in this thing, but let's see. I'll show you the error, then I'll show you the fix. First launch, do you have a backup file? I'll say yes, I have a backup file. And we have error. What error? System.platform not supported exception. This platform does not support this file type. Now, why it is happening? Because after the alert, we have this thing here where we select the file type extension. So here we are saying SQLite DB extension, but we are saying that for WinUI you need to use this extension. But for other platforms we didn't specify extension. Now one thing is we can maybe use for Android, we'll say device platform.android and use this thing. Now the problem with all these platforms, so for Android, iOS, these extensions are not working. So there is some error. These are not able to recognize these extensions. For this, we need to use some other way. And that other way is going to be, we can't have that extension check before. It will allow to add any file, select any file. What we should do inside this, when we are in here, when user selected some file, at that time we will have one check here. Here we'll say if device info.platform is not equals to device platform dot WinUI. If this is not WinUI, then validate the selected file extension. Okay, so here we will have that logic by which we can have the validation if the user has selected correct file or no, right? So let's try to have that. Okay, what we can do here, first we need to check this against these extensions. So let's move these extensions out of this method. Okay, and let's use this as a hash set. asset string SQLite extension, SQLite DB extensions equals this thing. But what I'll do, I'll say new asset string. Inside this, we can provide capacity, collection, and comparer. We are going to use this collection and comparer. Okay, so collection is this, what we already have. And comparer, we are going to use string comparer dot ordinal ignore case. That we're using this, so maybe somehow the selected file extension, if it is in uppercase or some other casing, in that case also we can use it. That's why I'm having, or we're not going to use contains, right? So yeah, maybe there is no need, but let's have this. So here we'll say private static read only this SQLite DB extensions. Now we can directly use these as like this SQLite DB extensions. We are good. Now inside this, here we have file result dot full path. Now if this contains any of these extension, then we'll consider it as valid file. For this, what we'll do, if the hash set or SQLite DB extensions dot any, if any extension, so we'll say ext, which is for extension, if the file result dot full path dot contains this ext, then we are good. If that's not the case, so we'll negate it. We'll say invalid file selected. In this case, we'll display an alert here, an error alert. So we'll say await app.current.main page dot display alert. We'll say invalid backup file. Okay, and here we can say selected backup file is invalid, something like this. And then we'll say okay. And after this, we'll directly return. From here, we will not do anything. We'll say return false and we will not do anything. If that's not the case, it will simply continue further and it will do all these operations, opening the file and saving, restoring it. Okay. Now, for this file type, we need to tell if this is not Windows, then do not use this one. Just use, so this is nullable. So for all other platforms, we should use this nullable. What we can do for this pick options, we have two options. Maybe with this file types, we can have a check here. We'll say this, if device info.platform equals this device platform dot win UI, then use this file picker type. If that's not the case, we'll say null. Save it. And now for other platform, it will set this file types to null, so it will allow everything. And when it will come here, then we'll simply validate that. Save it. Let's use it. And app is here. Do you have a database backup file? Yes, I have it. Okay. Now you see it is allowing us to select any of these files. Let's try to this biryani.png. It is saying invalid backup file. Now it is not doing anything. This page is blank. It came here, but we have error. We should have that logic here by which we can say that you should retry. Let's uninstall this. I'm not having it. You can consider this as a homework for you, assignment for you guys, so you can try this out. Now let's try it out. Time. This time I'm going to select the correct backup file. Okay, it is coming. Yes, I have a backup file, which is here. Let me select this file. And it is showing Abhay Prince 1. That means it got that backup file. Okay. Backup. Let's say don't allow. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll open this again. I'll run it again. This time it should not display that pop-up because this is not the first launch and we already have data. It is going to show me Abhay Prince, just Abhay Prince. And we can see this. Alright, so this is working on here. Now quickly let's try it on Windows. If with these changes, did we break anything on Windows or everything still works? Choose Windows machine, let's run it. It should directly go inside. Then I'll uninstall and then I'll try. Okay, it is here. Web prince, let's say updated. I'm saying this backup, same place. This time I'm saying MAUI DB -1.db3. So this name could be anything. But when we are actually saving our file or restoring our database, at that time we should use the correct name which our application is using. Okay, now let me uninstall this. And I'll open this Windows machine again. This time I will select that I already have a backup. Yes, the backup is this MAUI DB -1. Open it and update it. We can see this updated. That means this is working. So this is how we can implement backup and restore functionality in our .NET MAUI app. Alright. So do let me know in the comment. What do you think about this video? Do you like this video or did you learn something new? Okay, or you already knew about all these things? Do let me in the comment. And that's all for this video. Please like this video, share this video, subscribe my channel. I'll be back soon with some other cool video. Till then, bye bye. Happy coding.